Hello, everybody. Welcome to the one and only Monetize the Mic podcast, carefully curated by Interview Connections, the world's first and leading podcast booking agency. I'm your host today, Riley Baez-Bradway. You may remember me from the interview I did with our amazing client, Scott Schober, a couple of weeks ago. And if you haven't checked out that episode, I highly, highly recommend you do. Scott and I had a lovely conversation about all things cybersecurity, the fact that he's authored 3 best-selling books, and a lot of the best practices that he uses as a podcast guest and a host. Actually, speaking of that, if you're listening, you probably want to learn a little bit more about podcast guesting and how to effectively do that. And we've got a free masterclass coming up. This is a bit of a sequel to the Monetize the Mic virtual conference that we hosted last month in August. This will be a little bit of a return to our traditional free masterclass format, but with a couple of exciting additions. So this will be hosted on September 20th to the 24th. Sessions will be held at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and this will be hosted on Zoom. Normally, we do this in our Facebook group, the Guest Expert Profit Lab, which if you're not a member of, I highly suggest joining anyways. But that is not a requirement this time. This will be hosted entirely on Zoom. We want to be able to get as many folks involved in this as possible. So I'm very, very excited for this. We have a little bit of a shorter format. Again, we're hosting it on Zoom so more people can join. If you want to learn a little bit more about this, you can head over to this nice handy dandy shortened link I have for you. And that is bit.ly/SeptemberMC. That is all lowercase, bit.ly/SeptemberMC. Or if you'd like, you can reach out directly to me if you have questions about this, and I'll give out my work email right here on the show. That's Riley, Riley, at interviewconnections.com. Drop a line. I'd love to hear from you. So getting into the meat and potatoes here, I'm really, really excited for today's episode. Not that I, as a booking agent here at Interview Connections, not that I pick favorites in terms of my clients, but if I really had to, today's guest would probably be pretty close to the top. And funny enough, there's actually a 14-hour time difference between the two of us, me doing this interview. I'm doing this interview here right before sundown here in Rhode Island. And our guest is joining us from beautiful Melbourne, Australia, where it is currently just after 8 a.m. And I would love to introduce her right here. So with me today is the one and only incomparable Louise Bedford. She is the co-founder of The Trading Game, and you can go check that out at tradinggame.com.au. I hope I didn't mess up that link there, Louise. She is also the co-host of the long-running Talking Trading podcast. I highly suggest checking that out. So Louise, welcome to Monetize the Mic. Thank you for joining me today.
I'm so excited to be here, Riley. It's just wonderful hearing your DJ voice instead of reading an email.
It helps. We got the nice mic set up. Really had to pull out all the stops for this one here. This is a VIP interview we're doing here. So Louise, first and foremost, for those who aren't familiar with your work, I'm sure some of us listening here who may be involved with Interview Connections may be familiar with you just from you being a client of ours or from some of the testimonials that you've done from us, from some of the success you've had working with us. But for those who don't know, give a little background in terms of some of the magic you're working down under.
Sure. So my key area of focus is trading the share market. So any share market actually around the world. And sure, we are in Australia and we do focus on Australian clients, but we do attract people from all around the world because that's the wonderful thing with trading. Once you know how to trade, you can actually apply that skill and knowledge to any market and get those rewards. So we help people trade effectively, and we help people put money into their pockets and keep it there, which is the key. So we're not after this whole flash in the pan, up we go and then down we go type of concept. No, we're after permanent wealth and security, not only for yourself, but also for your family and for your legacy, Riley. Yeah.
Fantastic. I love it. So getting into some best practices that our listeners can draw upon here, because of course, like you mentioned, you're in share markets, you're in trading, and again, really not just in Australia or Oceania or in that region, it's really everywhere around the world. So with that, you've been on a lot of shows. You and your wonderful business partner Chris Tate, you two have been on a lot of podcasts in a lot of different countries. I know I've booked you on shows here in the US, Australia, New Zealand. I think I booked you on one in Singapore or Hong Kong, or that might have been one of Chris's interviews. It's been really fun being able to book you guys on shows really all over the globe. And of course, you don't really stick to one set genre of shows. There are really a lot of folks who you're trying to appeal to, and you're not just going to find all of those folks in one particular genre of podcasts. So you and Chris have really run the gamut in terms of the genres of shows that you've been on. So I'd love to hear from you, not just as a guest, but of course as the host of a long-running podcast, perhaps some of the best practices that you've used, not only just as a guest, but maybe some of the success stories or maybe some of the nightmare experiences that you've had as a host as well.
Look, Riley, I think this is a common mistake that people make. In terms of scientific discovery, if you've got like knowledge about physics and you're a psychologist on the other hand, as like from a different team member perspective, where the real leaps come forward with science is there's slight areas of overlap if you were to Venn diagram them. Mm-hmm. Now, those slight areas of overlap are really where the creativity comes from. So if you had have just booked us onto financial podcasts, onto investment podcasts, it's almost like we're singing to the choir and you get that repetition, which is important. But the true leaps in creativity come when you book us on shows that are aligned with high performance, because trading is high performance. So you've been able to get us onto medical shows, onto shows about psychology. One of my favorites, who I'm personal friends with now, remarkable people, David Pascalone. Beautiful man. He waited for such a long time to get me on his show, and we're in constant contact. That's got nothing to do with trading, absolutely nothing to do with trading. That's more about positive mindset and focus. And that's all of the type of qualities you need to be a good trader. So I do think your strategy about looking for that tiny area of overlap and helping that creativity blossom is so important. So firstly, best practice, don't get stuck in your ways. Firstly, have a look around and see, all right, this may not be directly my target market. It may not be directly my topic, but are there people who could be interested, likely to listen to that show? So stay open-minded. Also make sure that you've got really good support around you, people to critique you, people to say, why don't you try it this way? Why don't you say this next time? Play with your call to action. And from a technical support background, make sure you've got a really good mic. The stars that we've had on our show, we have not had to worry about the sound. That is such a key thing. Another thing, especially for ladies, find out if they're going to video you first. Don't do the runner to put on your lipstick. Find out if it's going to be on video and ask questions to the host prior to getting on the show. Find out who their average person is, their average client, and who their ideal client is. Find out how you can be of service to that host so that you can help them achieve their goals, and stay in touch afterwards. Write a little note, send a card. One of the guys that I was interviewed by, he got hit in the head with a hockey puck.
Oh no.
He ended up with a terrible bruise. And so Chris Tate, my business partner, and I, knowing this man had a bit of a sense of humor, we got one of Chris Tate's old bike helmets and filled it with chocolates and sent it over to this host. And we said, for next time,
Oh my
and he
gosh,
thought it was hilarious.
That. So that's hilarious.
So we've had like a lot of fun doing just crazy things, zany things, and let that come out of you. You don't have to be all, wearing a three-piece suit for this sort of thing. This is really human. People are going to want to listen to the personal side of things. So in terms of best practice, just shine, just let yourself get out there and do some fun things and connect with that host and connect with your target market on a very personal basis.
I'm a huge fan of that. I mean, really balancing those two sides of it, because of course, like showing up to interviews with a mindset of you're there to serve the show. This host has invited you onto the show. And I'll admit, it can be very easy at times to fall into this mindset where, I'm the one who's coming on this show. This person is very interested to have me on this show. Maybe I figure many people might not even be cognizant of this. Going, I'm a guest on this show. They'll be happy to have me there. And inherently, that can kind of lower your amount of preparation for these interviews. So I love the fact, and everyone who's listening, I really want to drive home the fact that being a guest on podcasts is really about meeting the host where they're at. And the better that you can do that, of course, it's a little bit of extra. I wouldn't even say extra work. It's a little bit of required work, in the pre-booking process. And of course, it can take a little bit of extra time to go back and forth and go, okay, who does your audience consist of? Because at the end of the day, if that interview was really, really good and it's really hyper specific and tailored for that audience is going to eat that up, because these are podcast listeners. They're listening to podcasts because these are niche topics that aren't covered in terrestrial media wherever they are. That's why podcasting has become such a big thing, is because of all these little topics that you can't get on the radio or on television or elsewhere. But like I said, being able to balance that with just being able to let loose a little bit. And that really goes into matching that host's energy and figuring out where they're coming from and who their audience is. And like you said, being able to let yourself shine, because there's no one else like you who's going to be showing up on that show. So the more you can drive that point home and really make yourself stand out just by being yourself, that's really the way to go. I love you mentioning that.
I think also, Riley, where it's really important to find out where the pain is, because if you can touch somebody's pain, then you are considered to be a god. So if you can find out from the audience's point of view, and you need to talk to your host to be able to do this, what areas of pain are these people in? Like just the other week, there was a gentleman who I was talking to who was the host, and you'd booked me for the call. He was saying that our audience finds it a real struggle to get out of their own ego and to be able to think that they can write a book. And I said, oh my gosh, well, I've got a series of best-selling books. I've got 5 best-selling books. Heck, I can help them with that. And in the end, it turned out that it was almost like a counseling session for the host. It was fantastic. So to be able to find out where the pain is and where you can be of service. And the other aspect I think that's really important in terms of support, work out what you can do that will fill the host's bucket. You might have heard of that concept where you fill them up and then you'll get the best out of them. If you're quite reticent and you're holding back, the host doesn't really have something to grip on. It's really hard if you don't have something to give them to be able to base their next question on. So give the host a chance here. They might be new at this. They might be doing this on a part-time basis. I always try and work out, if I was in that person's situation, what would I want from me? So for you, Riley, I've worked out prior to this call the type of things that would make your bucket fill up. I've asked specific questions so that we can relate more on the call. And I think that only does the right thing all around. It's not just the host to the guest, it's also the audience can feel that warmth. And that's so important.
That's fantastic. I hope everyone here is listening very closely, because there is a lot to be learned here. It's fantastic. I love it. So moving on a little bit here, like I said, really the fact that you've been on such a wide breadth of shows, not just through your work with us, but just in your media appearances in general, the ones that you have under your belt from years of doing this, kind of going a little bit further into that idea of meeting the host where they're at and really being able to, I guess in some ways, if I want to make a metaphor here, kind of be a chameleon in some ways. Of course, you don't want to compromise yourself. You don't want to compromise your morals, or at the end of the day, you don't want to do something that is so far out of the topics and the audience that you're trying to reach that it may be fruitless. But I would love to talk a little bit about perhaps how you tailor your call to action for different shows. That's a big part of what we preach here at Interview Connections, is really having a solid call to action, preferably one that is free, something actionable, something that, they listen to this fantastic interview and they go, okay, well, how do I find out more about Louise? Right. So perhaps you could share some experiences you've had with that, or some success you've had with being able to take this very, this gamut of different genres of shows that you've been on, and finding a way to tie not just your experience into something that will be relevant for the listeners, but also, somewhere where they can learn a little bit more about you and more about what you do.
Sure. So one of the things that you can do, and this has worked really well for us in the past, is to find out the values that host is looking to represent with that audience. So, for example, with one of the shows that I went on that you've booked for me, the 3 top values were love, nurture, and inspiration. Now, bizarrely, they are my 3 top values. Now, how good is that? Yeah. So we've got a beautiful dovetail there where I can say, for the call to action part, if you're looking to love more people, to nurture more people, and to inspire more people, then this is the right place for you. So what you need to do is register on my website, tradinggame.com.au, and you'll be able to pick up there my free trading plan template and my free e-course called Trading Made Simple. What that will do for you is, and then you tie it back into their values. By becoming a successful trader, you will be able to care for the people who you want to care for, spread your wealth, and make sure that you leave a legacy for your family, that type of thing. So you get the values, your call to action, and you tie it back to the values. As another example, I was just on a show with, it was based on engineers. So the whole group were engineers. So what were their core values? They want structure, they want routine, and they want a side hustle. So if you're looking to create a side hustle where it can be structured, you can bring your natural routine focus into that side hustle, this is the game for you. Come here, do that, and that will help you 1, 2, 3 with the values. So I find that to be a really easy way, because you've got a beginning, a middle, and an end, which is always a nice way to wrap things up. And you've got a way of being able to segue into your offer quite easily. A lot of the clumsiness as a host on a podcast that I see, that segue part is extremely hard for guests to do, because they hate their self-promotion. Some of them are just like really tied up in a knot about how do I get my word out there, and they're just waiting for the whole interview until we say, so how can people learn more about you? Try not to wait till the end of the interview for that. Try and early on give some information that people can be curious about, because very few people actually listen to the end of a podcast, particularly a long podcast. So hopefully that gives you some different perspectives there, Riley. I know in your masterclass you go through some things like that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, not just a lot of the things we've spoken about up to this point in this interview. Again, really focusing a lot on those secondary and tertiary markets, kind of calling back to that a little bit, because you mentioned if you were just going on financial podcasts, shows about trading, which, don't get me wrong, I mean, there are certainly shows in those genres that I've booked you on in the past, and shows that you've been on in the past that are like that. But really being able to think a little bit outside the box and going, okay, here are maybe some other things I can speak to other audiences, where there are parallels drawn here. And of course, psychology and mindset being such a large part of what you do, Louise, the fact that you understood that, I even remember our discovery call, which at this point, I think was almost 3 years ago. That feels like an entirely different world. Early 2019. That feels like an entirely different world from right now, doesn't it?
It sure does.
But I remember very distinctly right off the bat getting off that call and going, okay, she's in the right spot in terms of, not just mindset but preparedness in terms of she knows exactly what she needs to do. So when I connect her with a show, there's really going to be no worries here because she's in the right mindset here. And yeah, that is absolutely part of what we teach in our master classes and in our Facebook group, and all of that is really just being able to tie that all together and getting people to realize that, of course, a lot of people, including our clients, at the end of the day, you could consider it a subsect of digital marketing in some way, right? You're taking your message and whatever you're trying to promote, whether that be your business, your book, a program that you're doing, and you want to drive more people to that. But podcast guesting it's so much more of an organic way to do that. Instead of throwing a couple hundred or a couple $1,000 or maybe several $1,000, as many of these large companies do, at social media ads and taking out radio and television spots and all of that, that's a one-way conversation. It's not even a conversation at that point. It's just someone speaking at you, as opposed to someone listening to a podcast and hearing this incredible two-way exchange between the host, who they're listening to the show, they trust the host, they're listening to that show for a reason. And by proxy, anyone who they're bringing onto the show, they're going to trust more than just seeing an ad pop up for the trading game programs somewhere, right? Of course, they could see that and they might be interested in that right off the bat, but you being able to tie in some of these overarching themes of these psychology and mindset and all of that, things that can really be applied universally. That's I think which has really been a big part of your success doing interviews is that principle alone. So
the other thing that occurs to me, Riley, is these days it's so easy to look like an expert in an ad. So if you've only got 10 seconds to be able to get your pitch across, because, usually it goes story, segue, sell in an ad. If you look at the arc, the sell part is like 10 seconds of a 30-second ad. You can look like an expert in that time, but people can sometimes question that depth, because it's only been 30 seconds. So with a podcast, for you to be able to really be questioned, sometimes out of left field, sometimes in terms of a depth that you haven't expressed before, it's really hard to fake, firstly, sincerity, and secondly, expertise when it's an in-depth interview. You just can't prepare enough for questions out of left field. So that's where I think people miss the concept why trust is built when they hear an interview on a podcast. You could fire anything at me about trading right now, and if I don't have an instant answer, it will be really clear for your audience that I don't know what I'm doing. Whereas if you can fire something at me and, hey, it's completely separate, I know the answer, bang, I'm seen as an authority in that field. And that's why you've been so clever as an agent to be able to realize that there's more to this than just one area, and to be able to book us on other shows. We've loved what you've done, Riley. It's been fantastic.
Thank you, Louise. Honestly, it's really one of the most fun things for me as an agent, and through me writing my pitches and through my host outreach and all of the research that we agents do, that our wonderful show research department does. That's really the most fun part of it for me, because of course, you could just take an elevator pitch, right? And you can Command C and you can Command V that, and you can just change the names, and you can, change the, all these little variables, but just keep everything else the same. And you could just blast that out to umpteen different podcasts, right? But that's not effective, because again, especially someone like you, Louise, who has all of these very finely tuned, I keep saying the secondary and tertiary different topics to go on. Those are the ones that are going to be a little bit more universal, and those are the ones that are going to appeal to shows in a much wider range. So that's really one of the most fun parts for me, is being able to take everything that I know about you and look at the show and do my research and check out the host and their social presence, maybe touch base with them beforehand before I even get to the point where I pitch you to the show. So I can really get a sense, similar to what you do in the pre-booking process, just really getting a sense of what exactly they're looking for, and really determining if that client who I'm pitching to this person can offer something like that. And of course, 99% of the time, that really just confirms it for me, because we've been doing this long enough to the point where, we don't reach out to shows that are just completely out of left field.
Yeah, you're not putting me on a candle making show. You're putting me on something that has a chance that somebody could hear it, where they'd be interested in my service. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I do want to touch on here, because I know it is a very integral part of many of the bios I see for you. It's very prominently displayed on your one sheet, and it's something you've used as a major talking point, especially in a lot of shows that aren't as solely focused on share markets or trading or side hustles or finance in general. Because I know through the time we've worked together that there have been a plethora of health challenges that you've overcome or are still in the process of overcoming. And that's something that I would love to touch on a little bit, because it really does tie into that psychology aspect of it, of being able to say, these are kind of the cards that I've been dealt right now, and it's not ideal, and this sucks, frankly, but being able to find ways to figure out what you are capable of doing, and being able to kind of push through a little bit of that uncomfortableness. Yeah, that's probably a word. Being able to push through a little bit of the discomfort, being able to push through a little bit of that discomfort and still continue to do amazing work and be able to reach people and touch people all around the world.
Yeah, well, the health side of things was a major reason why I became a full-time trader in the first place. So going back many years, I lost the use of my arms for 3 years. And it took a lot of work to be able to get any movement back whatsoever. So that was, to me, probably the darkest period in my life. It was a time where I wanted to be a mother, and I thought, how can I do this without hands? It's not like I'd been using my feet all my life. So it's, I took inspiration from some of those people suffering from terrible things, but I couldn't do that. So I had to put motherhood on hold. I had to get out of my role as a national manager. It was probably one of the times where I really wondered, what is my place? Is this actually worth going on? And at risk of bringing the whole podcast audience down with me, it's just one of those situations where sometimes courage doesn't come with a roar. Courage comes with the ability to take the next step. So it was a situation where I traded with a pen in my mouth for a couple of years because I knew I could trade. I'd already built up the skills to be able to trade. It was just that I couldn't type anymore and I couldn't dial a phone. So I put a pen in my mouth and I had a go, and I got really fast at pecking out on the keyboard. And I had a broker that I dealt with, a human broker on speed dial. I could hit the button with the pen in my mouth, spit the pen out and put it on the edge of the table so I could get the pen back again if I needed to type. And he used to put in the orders for me. So it was working out what I could do and what I couldn't do. And it really meant a lot to me at that stage to have some independence, because when you're struck down from a health perspective, you just feel like your whole world is closing in. And I think people from lockdown perspectives can understand a little bit more about this now. You feel your freedom is restricted. You can't do what you want to do. You feel frustrated and you feel broken off from people who cared for you. You misinterpret all sorts of things and you become extremely reactive. And maybe now that the world has gone through several lockdowns, we are going to have a little bit more empathy for people with disabilities, because we've had a little inkling. Yes, we've had an inkling into what that restriction feels like. And also, Riley, you've been amazing. I've hit a patch lately where I've also had an issue. It's all connected to that original problem. So I couldn't make any sound whatsoever for 9 months. So I have had to learn how to reconnect neural patterns in my brain to be able to speak. And it has been a very trying time. So as a client, I think it's been really fantastic that I've been able to ask for what I want and for you to be able to get an inkling into what I was going through. So I've been able to say, I want to book short podcasts in my recovery process. And there was a big gap of no podcasts. And that's been a good way for me to get back into the swing of things. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to become a trader in the first place, because I can call the shots. I don't have to trade when I don't want to trade. I can use my skills that I have left and my abilities to be able to make money on the side. You know, I don't need to go to a job every day. So a lot of the things that I've found as a trader, they're the types of things I've had to pull back on and rely on with this latest health scare. So it has been a very long journey. Somebody said, oh, you must be so resilient, Louise. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know if this is resilience or whether it's just pig-headedness or what the hell. But sometimes you're going to have things you can't control, and all you can do is concentrate on the things that you can control. There's no simple way through it. You just have to keep on putting one foot in front of the other.
1000%. And Louise, I want to thank you for being able to, for going as in depth with that as you did. I know it can, I imagine it can't be easy to speak about and be able to relive to an extent when you say that. So again, I just want to thank you for going so far in depth to that, and providing some insight there.
And perhaps as well, Riley, just one extra point from your client's perspective for everybody listening to this podcast. If you have something that is a raw wound, be careful about talking about that until it becomes a scar. Now, speak from your scars, not from your wounds. Like, I can talk about this now because we've had a bit of a trial run, Riley and I think, yes, I can do it. But if I was still really caught up in that to the point where I couldn't get the words out because I'd be crying, that is not the story for the show that you're going on. You need to have emerged out of that so that it's somewhat aspirational. People can see that if they're facing a problem, they can come out of it. You don't want to suck the listeners down into a dark pit, because if you do, not only will you may not get out of it during that podcast, you may not be able to lift the mood again, but you're also leaving the host with barely anywhere to go. They're trying to hold up the person that they're interviewing as somebody to emulate. And if you're depressed, it's really hard for the host to be able to present you as being a person to aspire to become.
1000%. And actually, something you mentioned there reminded me of, and I remember after learning this, really my whole world turned upside down. And you know, I've been lucky enough in my life to have been in good health for most of my life. I haven't faced really any of the trials and tribulations or anything close to it that you've mentioned here, or that other people who are very close to me have felt. But this is something that I think really can change the life of anyone who's listening, regardless of where they're at in their lives. You know, you mentioning that it really is just about what you can control, and realizing that sometimes there might be a little bit less of that than there was at one point. And yeah, that's awful, and it feels awful. But being able to put one foot in front of the other, it was the concept. I remember I learned this a few years ago. It was the concept of business. And I don't mean business as in like commerce and you know, entrepreneurship and things we typically speak of when we think of the word business. I'm talking about the three kinds of business. There's your business, there's other people's business, and the universe's business, God's business, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever makes sense for you there. And people spend their entire lives trying to control all three of them. And being able to, you know, and when they don't have control over all three of them, then they're not satisfied, they're not happy, and they're not going to be happy until everything in their life is perfectly in a row. And again, people, I think, do this naturally, maybe without even being cognizant of that. And I was certainly one of those people. I've struggled with anxiety and I have a very analytical mindset. So those two things combined is a recipe for disaster. And it's still something that I deal with. But really just learning that concept of, hey, there are three kinds of business and you only have control over yours. You are never going to have control over other people's business, what other people say to you, how other people perceive you. And you certainly are not going to have the control over what the universe flings at you. So the more that you can really just let that sink in and realize that, what you have control over, like that's not a bad thing that you don't have control over the other two. That's an incredible thing that you have control over that. So being able to really step into your power there and realize, hey, these are the things that I can affect, and these are the things that I can improve for myself. And really being able to, and I know it's very hard sometimes, but being able to focus on that as much as humanly possible and put out into the world and put out into your world exactly what you want to see. That's really it at the end of the day. That's all you can do.
Yeah. And the other related aspect to that is what other people think of you is none of your business. Mm-hmm. So if you get some negative feedback, then you really need to question that and to say, okay, is that really appropriate? Is that something that I can learn from? And the big question that often I think can assist is this helping? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes, sure, we need to receive negative feedback. We do. But one of the bits of feedback that I got, oh my goodness, I can't even believe I'm going to tell you this, Riley.
Oh boy.
One of the bits of feedback was after one of the videos that I put out was, Louise, I wish you'd grow some breasts because they would distract from your huge clown mouth.
Oh my God. Wow.
So was that helpful? No, because there's nothing I can do about a physical attribute. And I mean, it was kind of funny in the end. But if that had been my first bit of feedback, if that had been me going out into the podcast world and getting that feedback first off, that would have been really, really hard to take. So you do build a thicker skin, but also you have to realize that that's where they're at. That's not where you're at. Mm-hmm. So what do you value about yourself? What's important to you? What are your own personal characteristics that you're displaying to the world? Are you happy with those? And not to take the criticism personally, even if it's about a physical attribute.
Oh my God. I cannot believe someone said that. That is, I mean, as we all know, and maybe this is something that we don't drum upon as much, really, even through our work here at the agency and through, again, podcast guesting. It's a very vulnerable thing, and that's something I think is not in the forefront of people's minds a lot of the time. But then you're sitting there in the Zoom waiting room, or you're doing an in-person interview, and then the camera starts to roll and you go, oh my God, like, I feel like I'm naked up here. I feel completely vulnerable. And I'm going to be telling these people who I'm never going to see, who I've never met, all these relatively personal things. I mean, we know the internet is a brutal place. I mean, if you've been in the comment section of a YouTube video recently, it doesn't matter what kind of video it is, you're going to find people being absolutely horrendously ugly to each other over something that really does not matter at the end of the day. But I love that point. It really is, because we, as human beings, we project onto other people the experiences that we are going through ourselves and through what we think of ourselves. So through seeing that, of course, you're gonna find some really ugly. I wouldn't even call it feedback. You're gonna find some very ugly things that people have to say, regardless of what you're putting yourself out there for. Even in my experience throughout my whole life as a musician and putting my music out there, that's something that's very vulnerable for anyone to do, because that's your baby. That's something that you worked on for hours and hours and hours, and you toiled over, and you put it out there. And you're confident enough to be able to show your face to people and be able to show something that is very personal and private to you. And someone types out a comment in 10 or 15 seconds that, if you're not careful, that can completely tear down your self-confidence. And for a lot of people, that's what's holding people back from even doing it in the first place. They're going to go, what if people don't like it? I have something to tell you guys. Don't care about that. You're not going out there for the sake of other people. You're putting yourself out there for yourself. And of course, that is easier said than done, and it comes with experience and all of that. But I'm very glad we touched on this because the internet can be an incredibly ugly place. It's very easy to hide behind a screen name, and nobody knows who you are. There's no consequence really for putting all this horrible stuff out there, and that's why people keep doing it, and it just seems to keep getting worse and worse and worse. So yeah, really, really being able to realize that, again, the only business you have control over is yours. And if someone else is coming at you with these things that aren't constructive and things that are really just meant to tear you down, that is far more of a reflection on them than it ever is on you. So I love that. And I'm really, really glad we brought that up. But I think that's something that everyone could use a little reminder of every once in a while. Awesome. Well, I think we're getting right up here towards the end here. So Louise, I know we talked a little bit about your call to action. So I would love our listeners to hear a little bit of that, an example of that in motion. Where can our lovely listeners find out more about you and what you do?
So if you're looking to create an income on the side, or even one that can replace what you're currently doing, then you need to come and visit me at tradinggame.com.au and register for my free 5-part e-course called Trading Made Simple. And you'll also get my free trading plan template. So that will go through all of the parts that you need to put into your trading plan to be a professional, effective share trader. Don't count yourself out because you've already got a thriving business. Most people find, especially if there's a health crisis that they haven't expected, that they have needed trading at some stage in their life. So it does smooth out all of the changes in your income over time. So I do urge you to get started and come and visit me at tradinggame.com.au. And also you can come and listen to my podcast, talkingtrading.com.au. We have so many beautiful guests on. If you're potentially a high performance person, if you speak to that market, or if you're in the financial services industry, some of the things that we do with Talking Trading, I'm sure will blow your mind. And we would love to hear from you as a potential guest.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Everyone just go and find Louise somewhere online. I guarantee you everything that she is saying right now, you will benefit from, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of what your professional or personal background is. There is a lot to gain here. And I suppose in the spirit of a call to action, I will once again remind everybody, we have a free masterclass coming up. If you guys want to learn all of these amazing little tactics and tricks that you can use to not just strengthen your brand, promote your business, but to really create yourself as more of a household name, just like Louise and all of our amazing clients have done, register for our masterclass. Again, it's coming up September 20th through the 24th. It's about 5 hours of content. And if you register for it and you can't tune in for the live sessions, you will have replays available for you. Again, 5 hours of content to be able to take all the things you're already doing and just up level them and be able to do them more easily and be able to have them work harder for you. So we're doing this on Zoom. We want everyone to be able to join us. If you're not on Facebook, that's totally okay. This is the first one we're doing that is not on Facebook. Head on over to bit.ly/SeptemberMC, or drop me a line, Riley@interviewconnections.com. That's RILEY. I know my name can be spelled a million different ways, but that is the way it's spelled, RILEY@interviewconnections.com. So once again, Louise Bedford, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an incredibly enlightening conversation, and I hope everybody listening here got as much out of this as I did, because this was incredible. So thank you once again for taking the time to join me today.
Thanks so much, Riley. You are my favorite podcast agent in the entire world.
Oh, thank you. I imagine there are a ton of us out there, so I'll take that with a bit.
Don't think too deeply about who you're up against. No.
Oh my goodness. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. Again, my name is Riley Baez-Bradway. You've been listening to the Monetize the Mic podcast. Have an amazing day, everyone.